a light?
No, there's no light, which is not good, but it's on off there. Let me try that again.
It's nice.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, Dale Murdock.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so just basically mention your name, your company. We want to find out how you got involved in sand sculpting.
Okay.
What your background is, whatever it is.
I'll just talk.
How to switch.
Yeah.
And I might ask some questions on the way.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about your little workshop here.
Yeah.
Is it the first time you've done this workshop at a sand sculpture thing, or it's ongoing? You always do that?
Not always. Depends.
Okay.
But it's working.
Okay.
Sand, that's all sand.
And I got your thing in the background there.
Okay. You ready?
Okay, yep.
Okay, are you rolling?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Dale Murdock. I'm a sand sculptor. I've been working with sand for 28 years. I came upon it on the beach in Victoria, BC, and after working with a group and winning the World Championships, I was taken, and not taken, but started working with a company in Los Angeles, working through the US, doing professional sand sculpting at different events, different venues, and I broke away and been doing it myself as a self-employed artist. I don't have a company per se. I work with the Maison d'Artistes in Paris, and so this is what I've been doing.
I noticed that there's a theme in your sand sculpture from Manitoba with the bison and the elevators across Canada.
Everywhere I go, I'll find a theme that suits the place. Sometimes it can be something in the past, the history, or something to do with even fairy tales, or it can be political. It can be anything that strikes my interest or the interest of the client. Or I'll do architecture. I can do classic castles. I can create from my own mind, or I can find something that exists, that's more difficult, is to make a replica, because everybody might know exactly what this thing looks like Mont Saint-Michel, or a building that's known. But sometimes you can just do a mix of architectural elements from a building or a castle or a place that will be in relief, or a jumble of these architectural elements that make up for the inability to actually create the building itself.
And in terms of scale, is this the largest scale size you've done of a sand sculpture?
No, not even close.
What kind of other sculptures have you done in scale-wise?
And scale-wise, I have thousands of tons, and this is about 38 tons.
And one thing I was going to ask you, it mentioned on the sign you took 40 tons from the sand pit. How do you know how much sand to get when you're going to create a sculpture?
Well, it doesn't. You work with what you have and what you get. And the original, it was supposed to be 20 tons. But it sort of developed that we needed more sand, and because of the quality of the sand.
And one thing I also want to ask you too, I noticed this sand has got a certain grain to it. Is there different types of sand that's better to sculpt with than other sands?
Yeah, fine sand, pure sand, consistent curve from a certain grain size to the super fines that you're going to get. And you want a good mix with some super fines in it, not too much or it's too heavy, not too coarse, but pure, not too many rocks, sticks or clay, and that works really well. You start getting garbage in there and it's not easy to work with. You hope you don't run into a cigarette butt, which is very uncommon now because hardly anybody smokes around me, which is good. Or pieces of clay or something, it's not very good.
And I also noticed that you have a table here. You give lessons on how to do basic sculpturing?
Yeah, it's more or less a workshop for parents and adults. Yeah, and it's to teach them the basics of how to compact and make a sand sculpture on the beach or anywhere. And I usually start them with architecture because it's to learn to use the tools correctly, how to hold them, how to handle them, what sort of things you can do with those tools and sand. And if you start working with organics right away, usually they just start whittling it down to a flat surface. But you're dealing with architecture, they know it's supposed to be three-dimensionally round, or 3D rather than face, which they end up usually drawing.
So you actually mentioned architecture. Do you have an architectural background?
I was going to be an architect. That was the idea. So I took a lot of architecture and art history, but my interest was in Minka, which was Japanese farmhouses. But it turned out before I went into architecture school and was going to apprentice with an architecture firm in Edmonton, I met the guys on the beach and things took a turn, and I just decided to go with it. So I worked out of LA with a company and went around the US for about 3 years and then went on my own.
And so this is just basically yourself that does the sand sculpting. You don't have a team of people.
Oh, I can pull in a team if I need it. I've got the best workers, the best sand sculptors in the world that will work with me. I consider the people who will work with me sort of a badge of honor that they will, and they have. So I'm really glad that if I need a crew, even in Canada, I can pull in 3 or 4 guys that I trust that can do really good work. And they'll no doubt follow my direction, no problem. Because you get egos, you know, and the people I work with, I'll work with them anytime and do the same thing, you know.
And you also mentioned that this sculpture was done over about 2 weeks at the River X.
Yep.
So you started from bare bone scratch, and this has taken this long. It's finalized today.
It's just truckloads are dumped off, and that's where I begin. Yeah. They're just a pile of sand, and then you start working with that, packing them in boxes if you need, or garbage cans, or whatever you need to get the end result.
So because you said you've traveled around North America and Europe, would you say there's more awareness and stronger interest in sand sculpture in other countries?
Yeah, I would say, oh yeah. Well, Canada, just due to its population and its origins and its mentality, I mean, there is a psyche of get the potatoes in the basement, and that's all that, you know, there's not a huge investment in the arts, which is too bad. The United States has more liquidity, there's more money floating around, there's more money spent on everything. So that would bleed over into the arts. And whether it's financed governmental or it's financed by private groups, which is usually the case, there's more work. Totally. Europe, it's a paradise for me. They have a strong interest in the arts. They have a strong interest in supporting the arts, both financially in the government level and financially privately. So I get a lot of work in Europe, Germany, also the Middle East, any place that has an interest. I've gone as far as Australia and Asia, but I like working in Europe. It's easier for me, it's more familiar, but I'd love to see some places I haven't been. There's places in China and Japan that I'd like to go to.
So you've interacted with a lot of different sand sculpture people out there. You've met them. Have you shared ideas?
Oh yeah, we all know each other, yeah.
Techniques they might use or techniques you use?
Well, there's some things that go on in the sand sculpture community when there are businessmen involved creating a project. All they're concerned with is money. So they're not really involved in the projects I do so much because I really like art, and that's my bottom line, is I'm an artist who's working in sand. Whereas there's a lot of big events that are based on Disney characters, and they're more or less just a representation of a poster, of a Disney poster. That's what I see. Very well done, beautifully executed, but it's a Disney poster. And the other people doing sand, sometimes they're more involved in historical. A lot of Russians and a lot of people from the Eastern Bloc countries are more into really well done representations of figures. They're from the classical school of sculpting, where they do a lot of figurative work, and they use models and things. But I find it repetitive too, because they seem to do the same face of the same person, and it's riding a horse. Next week it's riding a dragon, but it's the same face, same persons. Or they'll do historical vignettes of, let's say they'll have Stalin and Churchill and the meeting of the Big Four, or whatever. But it's, you know, nice designs in the background. They're playing with it, but they're just taken from a photo and then played with. You know, there's not much there. I like being more creative. Well, they're creative with it. I wouldn't say they're not, and they're very excellent carvers too. Really well done.
So I noticed that some of the artists in this building here have actually been commissioned by, one of them has been commissioned by the military to to design a piece of artwork for the military. Have you ever had
I didn't know
anybody
that.
commission you
Oh, yeah.
for a piece of artwork in sand?
Yeah, I had the White House. I did a commemorative sculpture for D-Day on the landing beaches, where I mixed the 5 landing beaches together. They brought a diplomat up from the Paris embassy to sanctify the sculpture, and that was very interesting. I did another one last year for D-Day, or was it the year before, on the beaches, but on the English side, on the Canadian side. That was kind of a miracle sculpture for me. It was very, very nice, very well done, and it was only supposed to stay for a day, and it stayed for weeks and weeks through storms. And at first, it was protected by the military. They saw the sculpture and wouldn't let it go, so they stood guard around it for a while, and then afterwards, it just was left on its own with a barrier around it, no protection, and through storms, rain, no vandalism, it stayed until they removed it, and I was shocked. I was shocked. I was really happy. Yeah.
So unlike this sculpture here, I guess once you leave, we just go back to regular sand, or?
No, they'll probably use the sand in construction around the exhibition grounds, I would hope. I'm sure they will.
Okay.
I mean, sand is always used somewhere. I mean, there's always sand, a use for it afterwards.
Because sometimes when people look at pieces of artwork like this, they don't really want to destroy it after, because it's such a
that's true.
wonderful
Yeah,
piece of art.
that's true.
Do you ever feel that way when you're creating some sculpture? You hate to destroy it after?
Yeah, but it has to happen.
It has to happen.
Yeah, you know that before you start.
Yeah.
Well, what it is an opportunity for me to sculpt, period. Now, whatever happens after, it's the end product is nice. I can take photographs of it, and I'd hate to have it destroyed before I take photographs, because then it's a waste. Then it would be a terrible disaster, and that's happened before. But if you get the thing done and you get your photos, you're in and out, and whatever comes after that photo, I don't care.
So do you have a presence on the internet when it comes to finding you? If somebody wants to commission you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. I have my own website. And all you got to do is Google my name, Dale Murdock, and you're there. You'll find lots of photos, whatever those photos lead you to. Some of them might lead to a few other sites where I've worked for other people, but most of it's will lead to either my site or my LinkedIn site or something like that.
Well, thanks very much for talking with us, and good luck in your next venture.
Okay,
Sounds
well, thank you.
sculpting. Thank you.